pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you all for being here today. My name is Chris Clark. I'm the village administrator. The objective of this meeting is to share with residents, neighbors, some feedback and information from Meyer Material. As the residents, I'm certain are aware, Meyer was before the village board earlier in the year with a proposal to complete their mining operations. That proposal was not passed by a 3-3 vote in the May timeframe. And since May, Meyer has looked at next steps as to how to complete the mining project. And just so you understand, from where we were in May to where we are now, they have continued to mine on the site using the procedures that they've used since 2008 from an operational standpoint. And they paid penalties to the village as per the agreement that they signed in 2008 in the months of June, July, August, and September for doing so. They also, after the May vote, there was a June 1st, 2016 obligation from the original 2008 agreement to pay to the village of Cary $450,000 payment, which has been their obligation in every year of the agreement. They did do those things. Why they're here today is to talk to us about concept using a new piece of equipment that we should all study and take a look at, try to understand. So they've got a team here today, and I'm going to turn it over to Randy Willie from Meyer, who's going to lead the presentation with some folks from his company. This is designed to be informal. We're here to answer questions. They've got a presentation, but we're going to take all the time you need to try and share with you what this is about, and then at the end we'll talk about potential next steps. So thanks for being here. Randy?
Good morning, everyone. I know some of you I know, formally or informally. My name's Randy Willie. I'm originally from Meyer Material Company. We have since been taken over internationally and merged with another company, and our new management team from the operations side is here with me. Doug Abercamp is the plant manager. His boss is Tony Yanakis, who is the operations manager for several sites in the area. So I'm going to give a brief introduction to where we've been, and then with their technical expertise, I think we'll be able to show you a little bit more about what we have to offer for the completion of this project. As Chris said, there was a deadlock vote on May 17th, and I think one of the biggest takeaways that I had from those proceedings was that it was taking us too long to complete the project. We had asked for 4 additional years and kind of got it back to maybe 3.5, and that was something that the board and maybe the residents weren't in favor of. So we're looking at different opportunities to expedite the process. But a couple of things that we were keeping in mind along the way were that we wanted to make the biggest lake footprint that was desired by the village. And at the outset, we wanted to get our reserves out at the quickest way possible, attempt to finish on time. The biggest stumbling block right now is there's ordinance requirements that restrict the type of equipment we can use on the property. And so the introduction of a dredge, which is a floating vessel, we'll get into that in a little bit, seems to be the most efficient way to reach all of those goals. In preparation for a potential petition, because we need the board to allow us to go back through the process, we want your input. We want to cooperate in any way possible, want to educate you in every facet of what we're trying to accomplish. We want to do it in a way that reduces the impacts to the neighbors as much as possible, as we always try to do. One thing that we've always got to keep in mind is the restoration process in this project is always going to be an intense activity as we put dirt back in order to create the park's shape. So those final slopes that are behind the homes along the even numbered houses on Abbeywood are going to see impacts, whether it's in 2016 and 17 or 2017, 18, and 19. So just keep that in mind. A couple of things you'll see on the cover slide, the Lafarge brand name, and I had said a little bit earlier about Meyer Material Company was a merger a merged entity, and about
9 months ago, we were fortunate enough to merge with some technical expertise from Lafarge. And Lafarge has a large presence in the Chicago market and obviously a lot of contacts locally as far as third-party help in getting this project done. So when you see Lafarge, we're all one team. A little overview for those of you that don't know maybe the history. Meyer Material Company actually took possession of, I'll call it the southwestern mine site back in the early 60s from Crystal Lake Trucking and Excavating. We proceeded to expand the operations over the 70s and 80s and went into the properties north of Clausen Road in the early 90s. As this process took place, we were acquired by Aggregate Industries US, which is a division of Holcim. And then subsequently last July, we were merged with Lafarge, and the new company, umbrella company, is Lafarge Holcim. There's approximately 2.5 to 3 years of reserves remaining, and most of those reserves are below water at this point. There's varying pieces of equipment you can use to extract. I'll let Tony and Doug talk about that a little bit later. For those of you that are new to the area, Clausen Road divides the properties that have the remaining reserves on them. The area south of Clausen Road is actually all in the village of Algonquin. The area north of Clausen Road is divided between the Algonquin city limits and Cary city limits. Ultimately, we will retreat from the northernmost portion of that property north of Clausen Road and take our equipment out as we head back to the main plant in order to complete the mine. Circling in on the property north of Clausen Road, this is what is half in Cary and half in Algonquin. That northern portion, which is about 105 acres, was annexed into the village of Cary in 1994. It was originally zoned R2, R3, which is a multifamily housing, and then Business Park, or BP, was going to be along the frontage. Meyer Material reached agreement in 2008 with the village to rezone it and allow for mineral extraction. We have operating hours of 7:30 a.m. to 7:30 p.m. The extraction deadline has passed. It was June 1st of this year, and that's why we're back. The reclamation for a portion of the property to be developed publicly was to be done by June 1st of 2018, and we're hoping to stay on track as well. Just side note, being in the material supply business, the construction economy has taken a severe downturn over the last 7-8 years, coupled with some geologic changes in the last 3 years as we mined further north on the property, and it has set our deadlines back significantly, which is why we went and petitioned 9 months ago for additional time. I will turn it over to Tony right now, and he can talk about the management structure going forward and a few other items.
Thanks, Randy. So, brief introduction. My name is Tony Janikis. I am the market area operations manager for what we call our GCA, Greater Chicago area market. I come with 9 years of experience with Lafarge, 8 3/4 of that on the cement side of our business, various engineering and operational activities, and been in this capacity since early June. So 9 years with the company, 15 years in total in the industry. What I wanted to do here is just briefly introduce you to the current management structure so you have an idea of how we're organized and how we lean towards a smooth, clean, efficient, and safe operation in a professional way. So local contacts here, as you can see, we have 2 site shift supervisors. Zach, I always struggle with that last name, Zamutka. Has been with the company for 3 to 5 years, started in our safety organization and has now moved into a supervisory role. Bob Conway is a production engineer, supervisor, also the two ground guys, if you will, who manage the day-to-day activities. Doug Averkamp, who's here with us today, been with the company with Lafarge 3 years. 3 years. 3 years, and in the industry 20. 25. Maybe not want to admit that here, but 25 years. But he's the plant manager here for the Algonquin site as well as the McHenry site that's 20 minutes north of here. So next up the chain would be myself as the area operations manager. You can see Randy there as our director of land and environment. Both of us have multiple site responsibilities. I report to a gentleman by the name of Matt Dantine. He is the head of what we refer to as our Mid-America region. So that's comprised of this greater Chicago area market, as well as 2 similarly sized and structured markets that serve up and down the Mississippi River. And Matt reports to a gentleman by the name of Guy Edwards, who is the country CEO for our aggregates and construction materials market in the U.S. So he is responsible for all of our aggregates and ready-mix concrete activities here in the U.S. So I thought this was important just to share because it's a little bit different than what you may have seen and heard and understood in terms of the structure previously. And again, it's how we are aligned to make sure that we're running a professional, efficient, safe, clean operations. Now what I wanted to do is just walk through our current operating model and strategy that's been in place since we started activities here in Algonquin and Cary. So you can see and understand what we're up against, how we're currently operating, and some of the challenges that we're facing. So we're currently extracting reserves via two means. Our underwater material is being extracted and mined via a dragline crane. That's the picture that you see up in the upper right-hand corner there. That is a 1970s vintage dragline crane that's been in operation here essentially since the start of operations by Meyer Materials. And then the dry bank or the surface mine is being extracted via front-end loader. Additionally, there's other equipment that we operate, a bulldozer, excavator, and haul trucks are used to remove what we refer to as the overburden. That's the material on top of the sand and gravel, which is the material that we're after and is used in construction activities. And as we've gotten further north and to the northeast, that layer of overburden and topsoil, if you will, has gotten much thicker. So there's a lot more extraction of overburden that's having to be done in order to get at the valuable material below. Beyond that, once the materials are extracted via either the dragline crane or the front end loader, all of that material is fed into a jaw crusher of what size? Those what I was.
It's a 2436, which is just the opening in inches. So I don't know. The neighbors that live right next door, you hear it? Okay, so that's
Yeah, so that's the crusher. So all the material currently is fed into that jaw crusher, which then feeds onto conveyor belts that run the entire length of the property to ultimately take it to the other side of 31 to further processing. So some of the challenges that we're currently facing is the efficiency with which we're able to extract materials, as Randy alluded to, the glacial deposit of the sand and gravel changes through that whole property. And as we've gotten north and northeast, it's become much more difficult to extract. And the area in which we're having to haul that material to that crusher, that haul is getting longer and longer. So it's a slope of reducing efficiency as we're currently operating. You couple that with the hours of operation restriction, and it's what's also contributed to the challenges in meeting the proposed timeline. And one final bullet point to point out there is I think that picture there shows some of which is the final property design, or at least a schematic of what the property would look like at the conclusion of our activities and returning that property for public use. The exacting specifications of the shoreline and the topography and the slopes is difficult, not impossible, but would be difficult to reach with our current equipment. The dragline crane working underwater is somewhat of a blind. There's an operator that basically drops the bucket down and pulls it back up without much visual to what's down below. And so creating a sloped shoreline would be difficult, if not challenging, to reach with our current equipment. So taking what we learned from May, when the proposal for extending our mining activities was rejected, what we've developed is a means and a method to extract the material much quicker, much more efficient, quieter, if you will, and which we'll get into in a moment as well. And meet that June 1st, 2018 timeline to turn the property over for public use. So the way that we would do that is through our proposed operating model of extracting the materials via a cutter head suction dredge and dewatering the material with a screen and a dewatering wheel. So some technical terms there that I'll get to in a moment, but you can see a picture in the upper right-hand corner. That is actually what is referred to as the dredge. More or less looks like a floating pontoon boat with equipment underwater that is extracting the material. And the picture in the bottom right is the equipment that would dewater that material, because as it's removed, it's all in a slurry with water and aggregates mixed together. So what I can do is share with you a YouTube video link to give you a better idea of exactly what that upper right-hand corner equipment is, how it operates, and what it looks like in action, if you will. If I can get the link to work. So that's what it looks like above water. And then there'll be a cartoonish picture of how it works underwater. So basically all you see above water is what looks like a floating pontoon boat with all of the equipment below water. And the way that this operates below allows us to be much more efficient and much more exact in terms of how we proceed and how we drive headings and how we extract the material to meet those slopes and that the shape of that shoreline. Should I continue with this? So this gets into some of the dewatering activities. This is a technical video, if you will. This shows a number of different options of how that material would be dewatered. The one that we would use is the third one there that's referred to as a mechanical dewatering. And this will show you briefly here one of the means of mechanical dewatering and shows how the water is then classified and delivered back to the lake. So it's removing material in a slurry and separates all of the solids and returns the water back to the lake. Where do I get back to? Yeah, that's what I'm going to get to. Oops. Oh, there we go. So what this would allow us to do is eliminate the dragline crane. It would eliminate the front end loader loading material. It would eliminate the crusher that goes clunk, 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 clunk. And it would eliminate all of that string of conveyor belt that takes the material to the south of the property. So this machine would be operating on the lake, all of the equipment underwater, removing the material, and then moving all that via pipe, plastic pipe, to eliminate all noise to the south end of the property. So there'd be none of the machines that are currently there making noise. The restoration activities would continue as we're moving dirt into the final resting place, but all of the mining equipment would be removed and replaced by this machine. So in addition to that reduction of equipment and horsepower that is noise emitting, some of the other advantages would be the increased efficiency with which that material is removed, the speed, better ability to control and sculpt the shoreline as we advance and create the lake as it's depicted there in the picture, and then a reduction in the noise and dust that's generated and emitted from the mining activities. We'll get into more details, or Randy will get into some of those here in a moment. So finally, what I'll say is a 24-hour operation of this sort of equipment drastically increases the efficiency because it's allowed to continue. If you saw in that video, the underwater trench, if you will, it allows that machine to continue on that heading without having to retract and come back and find it and risk of sediment coming back in and having to start all over again. So working in a 24-hour pattern is drastically and will drastically increase the efficiency of this equipment much more so than it would the equipment that we're currently operating even. Our intention would be to subcontract with a professional organization to complete these activities. So we would not be buying or leasing the dredge. We would be contracting with a company by the name of JF Brennan. It's an organization headquartered out of Wisconsin, and this is their bread and butter work that they do every day in multiple locations across the U.S. So professional organization, and I have another video that I'll share here, which just kind of highlights who they are, some of their history, and how they go about their work. And we'll also depict a very similar sort of activity that they're currently completing in and around Milwaukee, which is in a very residential area and working in a 24-hour pattern. Green Bay, sorry. Yeah, Green Bay. I'm sorry.
How we communicate, speak, work, play. Industry has always been a vital part of our nation's success. It is responsible for making the products we use every day, as well as the living wages in which many of us rely. And throughout the decades, we've improved our methods, our processes, and now we are being called upon to restore our waterways. These are monumental challenges. And where can you turn to find a reliable contractor to accomplish your goals? Why not a company who has been a resource to industry for nearly a century? Why not JF Brennan Company? A leader in environmental remediation and restoration. Expertise from start to finish. An innovative team with unsurpassed technical abilities who can assess, strategize, and implement even the most difficult projects. With safety, innovation, and efficiency at the core of how we operate, you can rest easy knowing your remediation plan has the right team on the job. Expertise in removal of impacted sediments through a variety of remedial methods, all of which include proprietary innovative technologies. Precision mechanical dredging, including proprietary environmental digging buckets. Surgical hydraulic dredging, using articulating ladders with a cutter head, horizontal disc cutter, or a residual eliminating pick back. Wetland and marshland excavation without building temporary roads. Or even diver-assisted micro-dredging for sediment removal around fragile infrastructure, artifacts, and areas of limited access. A contractor who can transport material by pipeline over distances of 10 miles, as well as plumb multiple dredging into a single transport system to reduce the impact on commercial and recreational navigation. Or by barge, using licensed pilots and sophisticated AIS tracking systems. And someone who can dewater the sediment effectively, using a system that can be customized to the project's specific needs. Someone who has the ability to incorporate decades of marine construction experience to install critical encapsulation structures such as settling basins and temporary containment cells, permanent barrier walls, or preserve existing critical structures such as bridges, seawalls, dock facilities. A contractor who can implement an aggressive debris management program that incorporates demolition and removal. And finally, once the impacted sediment has been removed, Brennan can rebuild and restored through a variety of innovative methods, such as the patented broadcast
We have
capping system, a system that has been used to install hundreds of acres of sand cover and engineered caps throughout the country, or our capabilities in reconstruction of emergent wetlands and wildlife habitat. At Brennan, we understand that success is not only measured by the outcome, but by the journey in which it is achieved. When you are facing these major challenges, you can rest assured that we are with you every step of the way. J.F. Brennan Company, marine professionals since 1919. We're your partner in waterway restoration.
So a bit more than we, would get them involved in here, but thought it was important to show that, the job and tasks that we would put them to here is well within their wheelhouse, if you will, and some of the more complicated, the work that they have done and do complete on a daily basis. This is well within their means of execution. And we do have a slide here in a moment that'll speak to the actual.
Oh, but you don't have anything to actually compare what it sounded like?
The studies that Brennan has.
So now the brass tacks, if you will, the comparison of the operating plans, specifically as it relates to the speed of extraction, which is what we took away as being the most important piece from our May timeline. So as it stands today, if I can get this to work, the expected completion of mining with our current equipment and means of extraction would be somewhere in the May 2019 timeline. So another 2.5, 3 years of mining activities with our current equipment. Our proposed operating plan with the dredge and a 24-hour operation Monday through Friday plus Saturday would be completion by December of 2017. If not sooner. So by the end of 2017, all mining activities would be complete on the property. The completion with our current operating hours would be September of 2018, just by bringing in the dredge. So you can see a significant improvement in the timeline by close to a year, 9-10 months by working those 24-hour days. And then finally, the expected completion of the restoration and delivering the property to what the picture depicts there. With our current operating model, the completion of that would be somewhere December of 2019, partly because the means of extraction there would prevent some of the restoration activities from being done concurrently and simultaneously. By bringing in the dredge, it increases and improves that timeline, so we'd be able to deliver the property back by June 1st of 2018, because there'd be many activities, moving dirt and whatnot, that would be done simultaneous to the dredging operation. Again, running with our current operating hours and the dredge, then would be first quarter of 2019 before the lake and the property would be completed. So as you can see, the dredge and the 24-hour operation significantly increases the speed with which we extract and the speed with which we're able to deliver the property back for public use. So now Randy will speak to some background noise studies and analysis that was done on a similar operation.
Thanks, Tony.
Maybe are explosives involved in our operation?
Not at all.
Supposed to be involved?
It's all unconsolidated material. So what we're using, like with a clamshell bucket today, you would be that cutter head instead. No blasting, nothing changes there. As Tony alluded to, there's a project in Green Bay that Brennan has been working on, and actually it's an environmental remediation project where they're removing PCBs from about a 10-mile stretch of the Fox River, just in the area of Lambeau Field. And there's probably 2 or 3 pieces of equipment that they have operating there today, and I had the opportunity to go up and view firsthand the area of that river, probably anywhere from 800 feet to 1,000 feet wide in different places, but there's industrial along the banks, there's commercial along the banks, and there's residential. and I heard you wince at the word Packers, but I know that there's a very nice subdivision along the banks that a couple of the Packers actually live in. It was pointed out to me. But the end all is I had the opportunity to get on a boat and go past a couple of these pieces of equipment, and he had a distance gauge and a dosimeter. And the dosimeter is what measures sound and sound pressure. And we took several different measurements along the river in the middle of the day, as you can see, and we were coming up with readings between 65 and 68 decibels,
Was
which,
that for the dredge or was that for the one that dries the stuff?
oh, that's for the dredge itself, for the
Okay,
dredge
so how about
itself.
the one that dries the stuff? That one's a little more clunky.
Well, that, and where that water wheel would sit is significantly at the south end of the property, nowhere near the homes.
Yeah, but noise does carry, so I'm just curious as to how loud it is.
Is it electric?
We don't, it's,
65 decibels is about the sound for a long.
Right, but that's for the dredge, and that's still loud.
Right.
Yeah.
No, I'm just to give you a rough.
yeah, so that equipment would sit at the far south end of the property, just near Crossing Road, as it comes up that decline there, and it'll actually be quieter than this because it's electric
It's electric.
powered, it's not diesel. Everything's rubber lined and there'd be
But it's
negligible.
still rocks and stuff.
Oh, it would be
Well,
too many
it's
rocks.
rubber medium.
Just curious.
So there's like.
Yeah,
you know,
Just be nice to know what those measurements were.
Mhm.
right, the-
We don't have those here, but
Yeah.
they're lower than what this would be.
And then what is the decibel today?
Yeah, we took readings yesterday.
Yeah.
I don't
Well,
think
I can tell you from the load that Bob took, you were right around 80 decibels when there was a load of material being dumped in the crusher, let's say standing 100 feet away. Now, you probably want to get an audiologist to do the calculations, but this is significantly lower at the same distance, okay? And you can look up, there's a variety of charts online that show what a lawnmower is versus a vacuum cleaner versus a bedroom, and normal conversation at 4 feet away is in this 65 decibel range.
If you say like a lawnmower, that's fine at 3 o'clock in the afternoon, at, 2 in the morning. it's a little
I would imagine a
different.
lawnmower is a little bit higher than 65 decibels. At what distance?
I looked it up.
So the bottom line is,
Talk about that.
Yeah.
so the bottom line is, if we have a source at 100 feet away at 65 decibels, and in comparison to this situation, our equipment is down elevation-wise from where the tops of the slopes are by 60 feet, 50, 60 feet. Plus, there's a 15 to 20-foot berm behind the homes where the sound would have to go.
Yeah.
There's going to be significant noise attenuation between the dredge in the middle of the lake, and it's going to move around. I mean, they're going to set up camp for a couple of days in one spot and move.
Noise too,
Correct.
instead of
It's a diesel engine,
Diesel home that you would hear.
yes, that
Which some
operates.
people loves to sleep, other people keep awake,
Yeah.
so.
It's a single diesel engine that operates, I believe, at 1,800 RPM, and they have hospital-grade mufflers, and I know that they,
Pumps are all enclosed, it's highly engineered for these situations, right?
But Tony showed you the video of that dredge, this dredge here that we're proposing, we have on standby, waiting, it's committed to us, it's called the Victor Bird. It's a new dredge, it's only about 3 years old, and it's all state-of-the-art equipment. They've done all the studies, and we've talked about the dewatering. I'm not worried about that dredge, and we can control that here, that thing is quiet. So we're gonna be pumping the sand up through a 10-inch pipe, plastic
gonna
pipe,
say.
which actually
There.
floats under the
go to
water.
the next slide. Yeah, there you go, go ahead. You're doing a
So,
great job, Doug.
especially when the weight's going through it, and then that's gonna pump up to the dewater screen, which is all rubber lined, there's no steel chutes or any of that kind of stuff. We don't know exactly what the DBs are gonna read until we get it put up,
It's
right?
too late for us.
Well, the thing is, it's all 4-inch minus sand, right? So this cutter head can take the 4-inch minus sand that we don't have to crush down anymore, right? So we won't be using that jaw crusher. They'll pump that to it into the slurry box, which is rubber lined. So we'll hear probably water running back into the lake, right? You'll hear that waterfall sound, I would imagine.
contact with water, it
Yeah,
doesn't
get up to
problem,
the bathroom.
right? So then after that, it's, they have enclosures, they have engineered buffers that we can put up, basically shields, sound shields around it too, to get the noise to go up, straight up in the air, or however that works.
And then you actually, it showed, I don't know if this is how you're gonna do it, but it showed trucks moving what's left over from that back end, that's not.
No,
gonna
it
No,
was
that's,
Okay.
right.
that was a remediation project. I think
Right.
Tony said,
Yeah.
I guess maybe it was a little bit over the top of what Brennan can do.
Okay.
We're just
Yeah.
using it
So,
for sand
The
extraction.
one photo back, I think that was on slide 6, if I recall, showed what the dewatering,
Oh, the
screen
wheel?
was like. Yeah, go back to the
Let me
one,
see if I
I
can-
think it was, yeah, right here.
There you go.
So basically this, see this right here, this is the discharge coming out. This is the same pipe coming up to this screen. It's all enclosed, right? This is the wheel, that rubber line. So this is what, like I'm saying, we don't know yet what it's going to be produced for decibels.
There's your front end loader right there, hauling the debris away too.
Well, no, yeah, right, but this isn't our situation. What we're gonna be doing, this dewatered sand and gravel goes right on the conveyor.
Right on the
Drops right on the
Yeah.
conveyor coming up underneath
Over by
Lawson
place.
Road.
And this wheel is going to be about 1,300 feet southwest of, I'll call it the curve on Bayberry, whose ever home is right on the curve. 1,300 feet, so you're going all the way back to the Clausen Road tunnel. That's where the wheel's going to sit.
Yeah, we can go trucks go down across the road, come on.
You got the squeak conveyor down now,
Yeah.
24 hours a day. Also.
Well, we
can
can,
do that.
well.
There's only one, there'll be only one like a conveyor left.
Alright, so, again, I'm Doug Avercamp,
8 hours.
I've been in Algonquin since 8. Okay, so when I got assigned to go to take over Algonquin, I had 2 months to mine this out, because I was told that we were supposed to be done by.
Yep.
So I did drive into that pit and I looked at what I was inheriting and I was like,
Great.
oh boy, right? After I'm hearing all of the past history and all this stuff, here's where we're at with the dredge operation to do this thing the most efficient way for everybody.
We're trying to get out as quickly as we can, which is why
You're
we're,
already out. Keep 8 hours, you're out in 18. Done.
well, 12 hours.
Well, whatever you're doing now.
Just so everyone can hear, I just asked,
That's
I
it.
see some hands. Let's do the hands and then let's let him speak so that when he answers questions, everybody in the room can hear. So if we can, next show of hands, if you want to call on hands, that way.
Well,
Just continue the.
Well, I was gonna say, why don't we just finish up? Yeah, well, because there's only a couple of slides left. So we talked about the high-density line that we would use to get the material back to the wheel. There's minimal noise, but I stood on top of these pipes on dry land, because I think they would be on dry for a short period at best, even. And the composition of the material was pretty fine coming out of the river, which is very same to what we expect to see it from the lake bottom here. So if you want to finish up with these bullet points as far as where we would be if we were to file.
Yeah, it's just, so our plan for execution, once and if approved, would be that we would need to secure the dredging contractor and equipment and resources. Because as you can imagine, Jeff Brennan is a for-profit company that is now currently earmarking that equipment for us, but at some point, there will be pressure to find work for that equipment if it's not coming here. So we would need to do that as quickly as possible. October would be kind of the latest in order to prevent that equipment from being shuttled elsewhere. We also need to finalize the restoration plans and would need engineering drawings so that we can make certain that we're meeting the slope design as well as the shoreline design, so that everybody's aligned with what the property is meant to look like at the conclusion of our activities. We would then work to commence dredging operation as soon as we could in 2017. This would be weather dependent, depending upon how frozen we get this winter and what the ground and water looks like come March of next year. But we'd be kind of tentatively targeting somewhere in that March, April timeframe, again, dependent upon weather. Then we would be commencing restoration concurrent to the dredging operation, so that We're moving the dirt to its final resting place. We're sloping the slopes according to the engineering drawings and allowing us to complete as much of that restoration as we can while we're removing material again, so we reduce the overall timeline. The completion of the mining would be done by December of 2017, if not sooner. There's a little bit of a buffer in there allowing for equipment issues, operational issues that are inevitable in any sort of operation, along with weather, and you know, there's a few unknowns in there, but certainly by December of 2017, we're very confident would be complete, if not sooner. Then we would do what we could through the winter, but moving dirt and frozen ground becomes a little bit challenging. But by all means, we would be done with final restoration, delivering the property back by June 1st of 2018, which is according to the original agreement.
So in summary, the dredging operation would only occur during the one mine season, which is from as early as we can start next year till next December. Okay. Ladies first.
Can you tell me, you know, if it's 24/7, obviously you're needing lights.
Yes.
What is the light situation? How bright?
So we're not looking for 24/7. We'd be looking for 24 hours during the week and a daytime shift on Saturday. So there's no Sunday operation at all. And the lights would be, there's down lights that are used similar to when you're out fishing in the nighttime. It'd be that same sort of light ambience.
Would you have one light over by the water wheel?
Sure, we would have, you know, the dredge operator has basically two lights shining down so we can see what he's doing, right? Then over by the deep water, we would have a light that would be shining off to the southwest on, with, you know, away from any houses, right? It would be shining onto the plant, so there would be, and then a pickup truck would be tooling around in there. Supervisor, you know, so you'd be like headlights, you know, down inside the pit. Our people tooling around is a technical term. Supervisor.
Here's a picture of what it would look like at night. This is up in Green Bay.
Is that a short from lights, is that not from the operation?
The operation in the background, maybe?
Yeah, here's the dredge. These are all, this is shoreline right here.
Yeah. But that has nothing to do with the operation there.
Not that I'm aware of.
So next,
Okay,
I'm sorry.
first off, this is going to increase your efficiency by more than double, is what I'm assuming.
I would say probably.
Probably more than double.
50, yeah, 50%.
Well, the hours would certainly
Well,
double.
when we're talking efficiency, we're talking of the quickness of extracting the deposit.
Yeah, well,
Right?
I'm just gonna assume that it's more, that it's at least double.
The tonnage rate is pretty much gonna stay the same, no matter which way we're going, so running those hours is what we mean by efficiency.
Right, so I'm suspicious of the noise level to start with. But my main question is really, if we're going to double the output, are we gonna double the income to the village, the amount that we collect from your operation being allowed to run 24 hours a day? I mean, we should be compensated. And I wanna know what our
So the
compensation is.
efficiency increases, but this is a subcontracted activity with a for-profit company, so our cost of extraction will actually be higher through this means.
Yeah, but we're out 24 hours at a suspicious, because you did not put a number on how noisy this is gonna be for a 24-hour operation.
I can answer one part of that. Unless it's changed by the village board, I believe the nighttime standard is 51 decibels or less.
And you can be shut down then if it's more than 51 decibels.
Yeah, I mean,
At
unless
what
the-
distance?
unless there's
Let's be
some
very specific about it. At what distance from where, from the closest home, if it's more than 51 decibels, you can be closed down?
Yeah, I understand. One of the benefits, and the photo's not up there, I was in Green Bay this week to look at the nighttime operation as a representative of the village of Cary. I don't have anything to do with Meyer. But one of the benefits here, as compared to the Green Bay site, is that I believe the distance from the backyard to the water is about 300 or 350 feet. That's good as it relates to the noise carrying. And And what also I saw was that, and we can talk about light in a minute, but the HDP 8-inch or 10-inch pipe that they have, if I understand it properly, it can be used as a benefit to keep that machine farther away from the shoreline on top of the 300 or 350 feet.
Those are the specific lights, and what I'm interested in is, if you say it's 51 decibels from the closest home, we'd like to monitor that, and the minute that it's over 51 decibels, we want it shut down. And I also do want the revenue for the village. I don't care what your operation is, it's quality of life for the village. We have a quality of life decrease from your 24-hour operation. And the thing is, I like the fact that doubling, let's just call it double what you're paying now, because it'll end up the same amount as if you took the extra time. So the village gets the same amount of money, but we get it in a shorter time, and you get everything done in a shorter time. I think it's a fair negotiation.
I'm not going to comment on that. I'm just going to follow up and complete my thought, to answer your question. So it's at the property line, the 51 decibels would be at night. What I'm explaining is where that photo was shot, that's about 95 feet from the machine. And I'm not an acoustic engineer, but we had a handheld device, and it was in the mid-60 or less range at 100 feet. So my point is, in the distance is at 350 feet or so from the house property line to water, and not including the berming that's there, I think we'll be all right. But also the village board, if this is, going to be considered, can work with regulations possibly to have some of the mining, the dredge mining, be done farther away from the homes at night, so that machine is not closer to the homes at night. So that would also, by using the HDP pipe, allow some of that noise to stay out in the lake.
Go ahead.
So when we talked about this 9 months ago, my understanding was that one of the significant time sinks for you guys was the northern part of the property, and in particular the northeast closest to the homes. Now we're talking about pulling out equipment, putting in a dredge. Have we changed the plan and we're not going to dig up in the northeast portion?
No. No. It's actually, we're
Right there right now.
We're stripping that out right now. In fact, as of this week, we're starting to drain that detention basin that's there that drains your subdivision. So I had my guys go up to that north side, up to the east, so we can get at that. Right? So we're mining that out to let that water drain to come back into the pit. We need to mine that out for our fill activities. If we do our stripping of the overburden, that's going to be moving to the north, so we can place that 3-to-1 in, and then prepare it.
So that's still in progress.
Absolutely.
And then the dredge comes after that.
Absolutely.
But you're still extracting now well beyond June 1st. You're still taking material out, you're still profiting from that material out.
Yes.
You say you're mining up on that north end, you're finishing that up now. Well, if you're doing that up now, you're still taking material out of there, you're still profiting from this, you're not living up to the agreement with the community of June 1st.
I can answer that. The agreement from 2008, as it's written, created a penalty provision. And so they are complying with the hours, and they're paying a $100,000 a month penalty.
Okay.
And so up to now, they're following the rules. We're here today, they're talking about some new rules. And, but I believe, the board, the village board will make sure that if they do consider this, that, there's provisions in place to make sure they get out of here, okay, as soon as possible.
Well, the other question that would continue to that then was, when that was held June 1st, the village is not supposed to be able to listen to any proposals from you for a 12-month period. There's not supposed to be any new proposals for a year.
I can answer that.
Be able to go to the village again.
I can answer that. As we're talking about next steps, which is how it's going to wrap this up, they haven't filed a document with us to formally ask for this yet. I asked, and the village board asked, some of the representatives of the village board that met with me with Meyer asked for them to talk to the neighbors first before anything comes out, because it's important to get your feedback. You live right next to it, right? And from the standpoint of if they did submit this tomorrow or Monday or whatever, the steps they would have to take is to ask the village board, in the next chance would be, I believe, October 4th, to allow them to bring this back as a new proposal before the 1-year window that our rules call for. If that was granted by the village board, then they'd have to go to the zoning board, and then they'd be back to the village board with a recommendation from the zoning board to make a decision with. So there's three steps. There's no decisions today. This is community feedback, and we wanted you to hear this first because we understand that, the concerns that you have. Yes?
The schedule that was put up there, and I apologize,
Sure.
I don't remember the exact details, but you needed to subcontract with Brennan, because they have their equipment, and, if you're not gonna use blah, 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 blah. So that needed to be done or you wanted it done, ASAP/October, something like that. So if we have all of these, you gotta get the okay to ask the question, you gotta go to the zone board, blah, blah, blah.
Sure.
Is the starting time?
I got it.
Realistic to?
That's why we're here today, right? Is to start this process, to get the feedback so that we are then able to take the next steps if allowed to proceed. So to answer the question of why we're here before that 1-year mark is up, it's just for that reason, so that we are able to secure it to start in March versus delaying it and not starting until this time next year.
But I mean, do we have the time, you guys, have the time to contract with Brennan and everything like that to be able to get started, because we're September of 2016, now we've got 6 months to get all this stuff done, get the equipment here and everything like that.
I'd like to comment on behalf of the village to that. As I explained, there's 3 public meeting steps, right? And that doesn't change. So whatever they have to do to contract is not our control. And I can explain that it's going to be decided by the village what the proper schedule for that is if a petition is, filed to do so. But conceivably, October 4th would be the first visit. If the board says, okay, we'll hear it, the next zoning board meeting would be October 13th. That would then, if a decision's made that night by the zoning board on a recommendation, November 1st is the next board meeting that could get called. So there's no schedule that gets this decision made sooner than November 1st. You follow me?
No, I get that, I just want.
Yeah, their issue then on the back end is,
Yeah.
they want to have, if they're approved and it goes through the process and they're allowed to do it, they want to have the dredge here in March. And, the lead time on that,
Right, but I just
So
want to
the
make sure we're not putting.
transit time to move it.
Impeding that lead time.
The transit time to move it is a couple of days, all the material, all the equipment, and then it's a week or so of construction and assembly.
We said he had to commit by October, so.
I put that there just as just to show that we're up against a timeline, and a couple of weeks there, there's obviously some negotiation ability with Brennan in order to, still secure that if it's a couple of weeks or something, but I just wanted to show that it's a decision that we'd have to make quickly, and not one that we could wait until December, for instance, because by then they would be committing those resources somewhere.
And theoretically, it could.
Theoretically,
It could go on.
it's around that.
There's a
Gentleman in the
hand.
back, you guys had a.
first, yeah.
I'm Ron Moore, I live on Abbeywood Drive, I'm ground zero for all of mine operations. So here's 2 wild ideas. Can you possibly simulate, using a pontoon boat and a diesel engine that'll generate that decibel level, cruise that water body that you have now, and like on a Saturday morning where we can stay on my backyard, Wayne's backyard, and listen to that. Because to say it's 51 or 60 or whatever, that's just a number. We actually have to hear what the actual sound is going to be like, because there's a couple of other factors. There's wind coming off of the water, which will carry that sound over the berm and onto us, because this already happens now. We could hear the operation of the machinery at different levels, depending on the weather and the wind. As we know,
sound bounces off the water, so that'll also be a contingency factor as something happens. The other thing would be to monitor the decibel level through electronics, perhaps set up some sort of a monitor device, what do you call it, a dosimeter, and have it electronically send a signal to the village some sort of an alarm that would set off red lights flashing if it reaches beyond a certain level. Because once this is committed, there seems to be no fail-safe method that allows us to bail out of this thing. In other words, once that stuff, if you Marcus is paying the fee to get all of that equipment into the ocean, what's it gonna take to get it out of it? So we need a fail-safe method. That's it.
Just a real quick question. The dredging, I thought you were pointing.
Yeah, you're good.
The dredging, the conveyor onto the truck, and the restoration is gonna go on off for 24 hours at the
No,
same time?
No, the only 24-hour operation would be the dredge. The moving of material and the haul trucks and the heavy mobile equipment would not be,
So the trucks will be just during the day,
That's correct. Yeah.
regular,
correct. Daylight, no operation.
so
at
they're
night.
not doing that at night, fucking.
Correct. No, we wouldn't put our equipment at night trying to reclaim. It's just unsafe. Plus, we can get all that done. We can just bring more trucks in during the day or excavators to move earth.
So
That's,
when you dredge, where does it go if you're not doing it?
it goes on a conveyor. It's gonna go off the property. It's a continuous process from the dredge
Yes,
onto the dewatering wheel, onto a conveyor belt, underneath Lawson Road, over onto the Algonquin property, and then over there, we will be storing it.
until the trucks get it during the day.
No, until the next day for process.
Oh, okay.
So we'll be storing it on that side of the property.
So that's less noise, I mean, 24-hour
Correct.
noise. Okay, thank you.
Okay, I got sort of a list. It was mentioned that this property is in the village of Cary and the village of Algonquin. I don't know where the dotted line is, but are you having any problems, or are you making presentations to the village of Algonquin about this process? Or is it for them like it's so far out in the outskirts?
I'll
they
answer
don't
that.
care?
I can answer that. They're not, there's no residential there that they have, so they're not.
So they're looking at it as more like an industrial area, they don't worry about the noise too much?
I talk with their village manager, about, what's going on from time to time, but they don't monitor it from a noise standpoint because they don't have the residential that we in the village of Cary do.
Okay. You talked about this machine operating 24/6. Can you operate this in the winter? With lake freezing, does that create a problem? I mean, if the water's moving all the time, it
Right.
doesn't freeze, can you continue the operation in the winter months?
You could in theory, however, you could put the wet sand on a conveyor, right? So you could pump water as long as it's flowing, but you put it on a conveyor belt and then into a surge valve to the other side and everything freezes up, so.
Okay. The video showed the machine with its spikes going down, going 30 feet. Is there a forecast, or did your geologist say, oh, this is 70 feet down? So the most you'll ever dig is the 30.
And that was just a theory, that wasn't the actual machine that we'd be using, but I do
Close.
this, the Victor Bird does hit 28 feet, and our deposit is around 26, and we get the gray clay.
Okay, so you're not gonna get like longer stakes to go even
It's an
deeper.
appropriate size for the application.
Okay. With the conveyor system being more quiet, is there a possibility of putting a conveyor to the areas on the east side and doing your overburden or whatever the nice finished product's gonna be with a conveyor? Or does it have to be trucked in?
Oh, it's gonna have, for the reclamation?
For the reclamation.
Oh, yeah, that's gonna be articulated trucks with dozers and excavators.
Okay, so it's.
During the day
Okay.
hours, right.
I think that's about it. Thank you very much.
I still got a problem with, operations at 2 AM, because, the sound of traffic come at night. Who's kidding who? And after all the leaves fall off the trees, it's smoke and mirrors is what you difference right now. You're not being realistic about the sound at night. And
And do any of you gentlemen live there?
No.
That's right. That's, that's fine.
Next question.
I guess the question is, why aren't you using a dredge now or having to do it?
Randy, you can answer that one.
Yeah.
Well, so it's not, our current operating permit, if you will, does not allow for it. It allows for the equipment that we have.
The original ordinance that was passed had a list of equipment that was allowed to use to remove material. And the dredge wasn't on it
From 06?
from 2008.
Okay, then the other question to that is, you only have one drag line. Why haven't you thrown in 2 or 3 or 4 to speed up the
Swing
process?
room that would be hitting each other.
Well, but you got a whole lake area.
Because that
Gigantic area.
the way that they would have to operate on, looking at the area, but right now we're on the northern part of the property where there's still solid ground for that machine to operate. As it would stand today, in order to retreat, they got to come down that peninsula. And so where the drag line is currently operating, there's not enough room for 2 drag lines to operate, and then we've got to have a way for it to retreat off the property because it doesn't have weight. So it's,
Right, the way that the property was mined out and with where we're at today, right, however it got here, right? But the only way to get out of there, we have to go up, like we're proposing, take it from the head to the north, come back around in a sweep, and then retreat with that peninsula. I don't know if it's on one of the slides. It is, a lot of you folks know where the conveyor line goes to the
Right,
north.
so you designed it so you're limited to only using one thing at a time.
I don't know if it was designed that way. I think
It
that when the geology changed and we weren't be able to put as much material on the belt because it was clay, we ended up kind of getting pinched at the north end because there's too much dirt and not enough gravel to get out of there. So there's limited swing room for having more than one piece of equipment.
Other questions? Sir?
Is the final plan now gonna be different from what was proposed at the early meetings?
Let me try to address it. Is it your question?
Okay, you were gonna cut out because of too much overburden way up on the north end. Is that still gonna be that way?
No. What we're proposing to do is to get in order to make the lake as the original proposal, is we have to take the sand off from underneath that overburden. And that overburden is part of the reclamation to finish off. As you notice, halfway down the subdivision, right, that's already reclaimed. That shoreline is pretty much set, everything up to the north, and as we come around to the west.
Okay.
So we need to move that overburden to do the reclamation, and then we want to come through with the dredge to vacuum out, if you will, the sand. And then we place the dirt back in the void that left, right?
Couple follow-ups to that. Want to be clear, the village board had asked me to look at some conceptual park concepts, and that was obviously set aside in May when the vote was cast to not do the new agreement. That document was designed primarily to look at what could be possible, right? But obviously, from a financial standpoint, the village has to decide if it is possible, right? And the village hasn't done that yet. And this village board may not be comfortable with a park that looks like that. What we've tried to do through the May discussions and/or these discussions, if there are going to be any, is to get that area graded with Meyer forces to a level that would allow some future programming or use to occur. Future village boards will have to decide if that's ever appropriate, yes or no. But it is my thought, and I believe important, that this be left in such a state that the village has options for it. And the option might be to do nothing, right? It might be just to allow the path to be around the lake, put the parking lot in, and that's the end of it. And that would be fine. But there are some folks that may want to do other things with it. And our goal is to just make sure that future taxpayers of Cary, okay, don't have the obligation of grading work that the Meyer firm ought to be doing now, okay? So that I just wanted that to be clear as to why that schematic is there.
You should really stop showing that. Because that's what a lot of people think we're gonna end up with.
Right.
I understand
And that's wrong.
I understand your comment, but I also know that publicly in the spring timeframe, we had discussions about what could be possible because no one, if I can just finish, okay, it could be possible, okay? And it doesn't mean that that's what a future board would desire. It might be half that, it might be a quarter of that, it might be none of it. But there are grants, there are alternative revenue sources. The Village of Cary in the last 5 years has acquired more than $5 million from the state and federal government for various projects. And, you know, things change over time. This could be 15, 20 years down the road. We don't know what the state of affairs are. We know it's challenging at the state and federal level now. But it's designed to keep the village's options open. I understand your comment about we don't want to mislead. But also in 2008, okay, there was discussion that was done by the board to have this be some sort of at least passive area. I mean, a bike path was put around the lake, a parking lot was put in. The current board wasn't here at the time. So they're just trying to preserve options and try to be good stewards. But yet, it's a tough situation my village board's in right now because they're holding the back end of this agreement. And I'm going to explain again, you know, this village board's goal is to be as fair to the residents as we can be, but to get Meyer completed as soon as possible. And that's why we're talking about the mechanism by which they're doing the mining.
I didn't get to finish my answer.
Oh, I'm sorry, sir. Go ahead. And then you're next.
The original plan had the lake being so many acres. Then at the meeting, I guess
Sure.
early spring, it was said that there's too much overburden up in the north and we're gonna reduce the size of the lake. Okay, now you're saying you're gonna go back to the original size?
I believe
It won't be the original.
I believe it's in the high 80 acre level. And I believe that my discernment of the 08 documents was that it was designed to be around 95 acres. So we're probably in the 80s. Yeah.
Now, with the dredging, you still have to you do that underwater. So if you're gonna make the change the perimeter of the lake or make it bigger, you gotta take that overburden off the top first, right?
Yeah, and all that overburden will more or less be removed in the next 6 weeks.
Okay, so
We're doing that today with our own equipment as well as the contractor. There may be some carryover into the first quarter, but the majority of that will be done at the outset of.
I guess what I was getting at, you're not gonna be doing overburden removal while you're doing dredging.
Oh, yes, next year, we would just start off the first quarter of the year as we get to the north, right? We have, I wanna say at the top of my head, around 450,000 yards to move yet. Okay? So, and we move at about currently 5,000 yards a day is a good production rate.
So not 24 hours.
No.
It's all daytime work.
No, 10-hour shift.
So we still have a lot of the noise during the day.
The overburden has to be removed before the dredge can actually undermine the materials.
Sir,
So,
this gentleman has a question.
This proposal has already been turned down, and this will be a new request. My question is, how does the voting take place for the village? Is it different rules than it would be for what's just been turned down?
Sure, I'm not the village attorney, but I'll try to answer your question. As I understand our guidelines, if there was an ask of the village board to allow the one-year rule to be relieved for this, it would be a simple majority required to allow it to go into the process. I mean, it depends on how many people are there, but a majority vote, okay? Simple majority vote of the village trustees that are present. And if I can finish.
This can overrule what's already been in place.
I'll get to that. Let me answer the first part first. So that would be the first part of the process. It would then go into the zoning board level, and they would make a positive or negative recommendation to the village board.
With the new village, the village executive has been replaced, and that works new too.
Okay, I'm trying to answer the first part, and then I'll go to those parts.
It leads me to the next one.
Okay.
I'm very worried. I don't trust what's going on.
Okay, I understand your comment. What I'm explaining is that the zoning board would hear it again, and they make a positive or negative recommendation to the village board. Then the village board, based on which of those two was provided, if it's a negative recommendation, it would be needing 4 votes of 6 trustees to be passed. If there's a negative recommendation from the zoning board. If there's a positive recommendation, it's my understanding it would be a simple majority vote.
So the zoning board, this can change the whole, this new request can change, overrule what has already been turned down. is what you're telling me.
Well-
That's a real possibility.
I will explain that, you know, this proposal is brought forward to try and complete the mining. And yes, there have been some changes on the zoning board. There's, I believe, 3 new individuals that are on the zoning board that have been selected by a process at the village. And, you know, we believe they're excellent citizens that are primarily volunteering their time to make recommendations to the village board. I truly believe that. And our village board then would be involved on the backside to make final decisions. The village board makes the decisions. There is a recommendation from the zoning board that's a part of the process.
So part of the negotiation can be what I suggested, doubling the fees. The existing fees, we should double them because it would be, you know, double the hours or night operation with new equipment approved. It is a whole new negotiation, so I highly recommend, if there's any trustees in the room, that we should double the income at the same time that we double or have night operations with new equipment.
I appreciate those remarks, and I'll make sure we have a tape video to have all elected officials see this along with the folks that are here today with us.
Okay, thank you.
But let me explain that, you know, we also don't want to negotiate against ourselves.
What's
And
negotiating against ourselves? I know it's
I-
a businessman.
I understand, I'm explaining that the objective, as I understand it, is to get Meyer out of Cary and done.
And we need to do it with
I understand,
no loss of quality of life.
I understand,
Mining in nighttime is definitely what I call a quality of life issue.
I understand.
It sounds overstated, but the reality is people need to sleep at night.
Yes.
So it's a quality of life issue.
Thank you for your comments.
Okay, thank you.
Any last questions? We take about 5 more minutes.
Well, the current, okay, this denied is, they're out in 18 anyway, correct?
I'll answer that.
Existing plan.
No, I will answer that, thank you. Not necessarily. As we've seen in this year, they've paid penalties to continue.
Right.
And the language in the agreement is the language in the agreement. It was done in 2008. And so, you know, it may be arguable if they even have to mine, okay, the full months between March and November that they've been mining since 2008. My point is there can be some selection of months, which I think is bad for the town. And secondly, from the standpoint of the future, after the June 1, 2018 deadline, they can pay double penalties and continue to mine essentially $200,000 a month and potentially decide what months to pay that possibly as well. Obviously, we have our own council and we would take the position of the village board, but my significant concern is that this could string out, you know, way into 18, you know, or beyond the way we sit today with no changes. And if the objective is to get them completed, you know, the village may need to think about some alternative options. Whether this be the one or not, you know, that's up to the village board. But we need to be cognizant of the end goal, which is to get them finished. At the last village board meeting, the village board reviewed some mapping on the site back to the late 1980s, and it appeared to us from the data that there's been mining in that general area since the late 90s, if you include the Algonquin property next to the Fox Trail subdivision. So this has been going on in some fashion for 17 years, way before the village of Cary allowed the mining to occur. So we understand very much the need to be done. But the reality is the village board of Cary doesn't have the luxury of just sitting still, most likely, if the goal is to get Meyer completed. So that's why we're here today. Yes.
I did have a question. How many, I'm assuming people are gonna be losing their jobs when we switch over?
Not
No.
necessarily.
Oh, okay.
No, we redeploy those
Oh, okay.
folks.
Any other last
We have
questions?
very talented employees that gotta find something, right, we'll find something for them to do.
Yes, ma'am.
Just a quick one, how many hours do you operate right now, a week?
60.
60, so this would put it up through probably 128 hours a week. So I do understand, you know, like right now you're paying $416 an hour to carry, to operate. And I do understand this gentleman's request for be paid for the rest of the hours. I mean, it's 128 hours of operation. That's 68 additional hours a week that they would be doing, into a loan.
I guess
Thank you for your comments.
One
Any
thing-
last questions before I close?
I just have one.
Yes, ma'am.
So in terms of compensation, if, when they go back to the board with this new proposal, are they gonna be operating under the penalty schedule of the additional per month, or are you going to be restructuring the agreement
Be
in
restructured.
terms of compensation?
Be a restructured agreement, most likely.
With us, with the penalty, they'll get out of here fast.
No.
They pay the penalty, they'll get out.
Can I add one thing about the decibel levels, only
I'm sorry.
because
Will that updated, what your proposal would be for updated for compensation, when will that be presented?
I want to answer that. As I indicated earlier, we don't have anything in writing today. There has been discussion with them conceptually about what could be involved
Would
here.
that be presented at the
Oh, yeah.
zoning meeting?
It would absolutely be part of the public process, yeah. And I just want to be clear, the village board and the village board is going to need to decide what the priority is. And, when it becomes solely a financial decision, getting them out as soon as possible might not, be as likely. So I caution the residents today to walk away thinking that this is a multi-million-dollar day for the village in terms of penalties or whatever you want to call it. I caution you.
I welcome those penalties. They can stay here for the next 10 years with those penalties.
Well, I don't know that, I appreciate your viewpoint on that. I've heard from very many residents in the Fox Trails area and other parts of the community, and obviously people have different viewpoints, but what I hear consistently is people want the mining completed.
No, I agree. That was a smart comment on my part. What I'm really saying is I know you dollars and cents, and as a businessman, you make me pay penalties like that, I'm out of there. So.
Any other last comments or questions? Next steps are truly up to Meyer, and the village will process and publicize as we did for this meeting today, and I appreciate you all being here greatly. This concept came up from the work of 2 elected officials of the village board to talk as soon as possible to the residents, which I think was a great decision. Meyer has to file a petition, and then we'll process it like we would any other petition of the village. I don't have it today. So we'll share with you through the Cary News Weekly, through direct emails, and I encourage you to sign up on the list outside if you haven't already. So I have your emails. We'll share information with you along the way, and we'll handle it openly through the process if it does come in. Thank you very much for being here today.
Thank you.
We're going to adjourn the meeting. Thank you.